This is the first event for the Software and Internet Special Interest Group for TIE Seattle for 2011. And it's a decent turnout, so thank you for coming today. And we have a couple more things planned for the rest of the year. One of them is a series on internet ventures, which is going to be separate events on how to monetize monetize internet solutions or ventures, as well as how to build the solutions or products that you might have in mind. And another component is around driving adoption. How do you get to those 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000, or 1 million users? So stay tuned for that information. But so without further ado, I want to introduce the moderator for the panel for tonight. And then I'll let him and the other panelists introduce themselves as well. So Chris Pirie is our moderator. He's the general manager at Microsoft Learning Solutions, Sales and Marketing Readiness. So Chris.
Thanks so much.
Chris is also the president-elect for something called American Society for Training and Development. So I'll let Chris tell a little bit more about himself and get things started.
In 1999, at Comdex, John Chambers, chairman of Cisco Corporation, said, the next big killer application for the internet is going to be education. Education over the internet is going to be so big that it's going to make email look like a rounding error. So this is a guy who sells infrastructure, obviously. That quote I have seen in so many business plans since then. It kind of sparked a whole generation of interest in this thing called eLearning, which is a very sort of broad set of services, companies, technologies who apply the sort of digital realm to the process of teaching and learning. And on the surface, it's a pretty compelling area to go into. I think the next thing that you will likely see in a lot of business plans is a note of the fact that there are 1.4 billion students on the planet. That's a kind of nice addressable market. I think what you'll learn from some of the panel comments is that the simplicity ends there. A very, very complex market. But a great space. There's been lots and lots of very, very interesting companies that have grown up and evolved and been acquired and in some cases died off. But I thought what we focus on tonight is really a couple of things that were in questions that you asked originally around where are the areas that one should focus if one's interested in building companies and building kind of value in this space. So we'll try and address that. And so with that, I'm going to introduce the panel. Immediately to my right is Jason. So Jason, why don't you talk a little bit about your current role and your experience of the e-learning space?
Sure. So I'm with Mavron. We're a consumer-facing venture capital firm in Seattle. Right now, if you were if you had a marketing degree today, you fell asleep for 5 years, your skills will be completely obsolete, which makes you really kind of need to change the whole paradigm of kind of education is not a discrete event at the beginning of your career, but something that continues thereafter.
Jason's got a great perspective. I think he's got some interesting things to share with you later on. Suresh.
Okay. My name is Shirish Netkarni. I'm a co-founder of LiveMocha. LiveMocha today is the world's largest language learning site on the internet. We allow you and encourage you to practice with native speakers within our community. So you might be, let's say, a native English speaker learning Spanish. We will connect you with native Spanish speakers who are learning English.
Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl Vito. I'm the CEO of Apex Learning, which is an online learning company focused on secondary education. And I've been with Apex now for 9 years, and I've had the opportunity to see both the incredible challenges that you have building any business, but in particular a business focused on K-12 education, as well as we're starting to see some real success and have the rewards that come with that, both in terms of personal satisfaction and ultimately the satisfaction of having, we hope, built a successful and sustainable business.
Great. Thank you. Ben.
Ben Watson. I am the Director of Training Products for Microsoft Learning. So my group oversees Microsoft Press, courseware, and of course e-learning. That's my day job. I'm actually a kind of born and bred entrepreneur. I have started and sold 2 .com e-learning companies. Scholars.com back in the late 90s, and several years ago, Ensemble Collaboration. And then I moved to work for Thompson Learning, literally as an intrapreneur, where they hired external entrepreneurs and allowed, they wanted entrepreneurs to work inside large organizations. I retired for 6 months and was recruited by Microsoft Learning, and I've been there for 3.5 years.
I'm Vikesh Mahendru. I'm CEO of Intrepid Learning Solutions, and I've been in that position for about 3 years. Most of my career was spent in a large HR consulting firm called Mercer, and but I made this interesting transition from a large company to a small early stage company focused on corporate learning and development. And I have to say it's been a fascinating journey. It's just been a new exciting world which I never really appreciated what it could do and what was being done in it.
Ben, let me start with you. Just
Randomly selected.
Pick on you, randomly selected. In our discussion this afternoon rather, you talked about the consumerization of learning, and I asked you for some trends and potential areas of focus for people who were thinking about building companies and building value. Do you want to share your thoughts around that with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, just really briefly, e-learning kind of was born out of a perceived need for corporations needing a more effective and cheaper way of learning. And since then, e-learning's been around for years and years, and it's kind of ended up becoming more of a price war versus highly effective, large-scale learning. Certainly, what we see in the industry is consumerization of IT, right? So we see a lot of dare I say, iPads, showing up in the enterprise. If this is recorded, I will no longer be working for Microsoft. So, but the same way that we see, consumerization happening for IT, I see the same thing happening for learning. And what I mean by that is, if you look at things like selling to consumers through things like ebooks, apps on your phone, apps on your desktop is the new emerging category. There's a lot of opportunity now for e-learning to pop up in different places. The concern I've always had with e-learning is when it's corporate focused, the person who's buying the e-learning is not the person using it. And it's always been a big, big disconnect, right? So the corporate buyer is happy because he got this thing at a cheap price. The learner comes along, their employee says, this is just not very exciting. Now we're starting to see individuals, consumers, saying, this is important to me. So that simplicity of things like ebooks and standalone e-learning and apps on phones and desktops, to me is a very exciting area. And I guess my last comment, Chris, would just be this time is probably one of the most exciting times since the last internet boom to start companies as entrepreneurs. And the joke we made earlier tonight was, I really wanted to go sit with you guys, right? Because I really think the cost of starting a business, the infrastructure costs, the internet's leveled the playing field and all the rest. E-learning or learning generally, this is a pretty freaking hot space right now. I am very excited about it. I'm a little biased.
No need to oversell that. Vikesh, maybe we could go to you next. In terms of opportunities for people, areas people might focus their sort of entrepreneurial efforts in the e-learning space, what are your customers asking you for on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. I'll address the issue of the space that's attractive for entrepreneurs, but let me start with a couple of major trends and then what our customers are asking us for. I mean, if you look at some of the mega trends, because the way economies are, the restrictions on travel, more and more companies are using e-learning, right? or virtual classrooms, or e-learning, or some form of learning which is technology enabled that will not require people to travel from point A to point B to be part of a learning program. Let's check that. Second is, let's look at the huge demographic issues of in terms of workforce productivity, the composition of the workforce, the skilling of the workforce, the development of leadership. I'm talking from the corporate perspective. Leadership. You've got that set of challenges that is facing. The third is every company is trying to achieve top line growth. And after having gone through a round of cost cutting, now the focus is on top line growth. And so how can learning play a part in top line growth, whether it is through the education of your sales force, or whether it's getting the word out about your product, or whether it's using e-learning to build your brand or to extend the reach that you would have to the potential set of customers on a global basis. So in all these situations, we are working with many clients, and I can give you a couple of examples of clients that I'm allowed to talk about. Just to give you a flavor, then I'll address the question of entrepreneurial opportunity, because there is tremendous amount of entrepreneurial opportunity here. You can, let's say for a company like State Street Global Advisors, we are working with them and have worked with them to install a learning framework where thousands of independent financial professionals can come and quickly learn about exchange traded funds and then potentially recommend them to customers as part of their financial portfolios. But in order to do that, we have to create something that was with the learner's perspective in mind. You know, how are these people likely to absorb information? So that's just one example of how learning helped the establishment of a brand and propagation of their exchange traded funds for this particular client. Huge impact on their top line and bottom line potentially. Now, in terms of opportunities, first of all, you can be in the services business for those who are so inclined. I understand there are many tech-minded entrepreneurs here, but there is a services opportunity for those who are so inclined. There are so many different technology applications that are being installed in the by a number of technology providers. It's around either customer management or other areas of management, and there's education that's needed in order for that. When the technology is installed, the customer is very often not provided the help from the technology provider, but so there is a service opportunity, and I know I've talked to a couple of you about that, and you were pretty excited, so that's one. The second is, clearly there is the opportunity for content development. As there is certain kind of specialized content, which still there can be a play. A lot of people will make the point that content is commoditized, that there is not much, but actually certain type of content, certain type of volume can enable you to create off-the-shelf content kind of business in areas where there is a certain number of, there is demand, and pure scale will allow you to make a tremendous amount of money and create a good organization. The other areas could be technology. The trend that around agile, formal and social learning, let me just put it this way. Formal learning is, as the word suggests, a little more formal, pushed out to individuals. Agile learning is when people draw learning content when they need it, as they need it. And social is when you learn from each other. It's community-based learning. In all these areas, there is need for technology applications to enable, forget about formal learning for a minute, but certainly in the informal learning or agile space and in the social learning area, there is need for technology applications to enable this to happen, whether it's through a sort of a portal or an application, whether it's something that allows social interaction to take place. So then we've talked about services, we've talked about content, we've talked about technology as three potential areas where I think that there are entrepreneurial opportunities.
I think you have a very, what I might call sanguine view of what it takes to build a company in that space and build a business in that space. So tell us what's hot and where the opportunities are in post-secondary and K through 12.
I frankly think, based on my experiences, that there might be no market more difficult to build a successful business in from a startup stage than the K through 12 education space. It is an incredibly challenging space, and when you look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, one of the greatest challenges of the space is there are relatively few examples of successful businesses that have been built and successful exits. That said, I would agree with Ben that there probably has never been a better time to start an education business because, frankly, the education sector is hot. And there's a lot of attention being brought to it, and as a result of that, a lot of interest among those who have money in investing in the space.